Today, we're going to look at 3 uplifting stories that are of the uplifting variety. But before we get into those stories, if you're a fan of the strange flex seal, also please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss Flex Seal. Also please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss Mrballen. Sheep are known to be sheep. They seem to just mindlessly follow their herd without thinking. But one sheep from New Zealand, who was named Sheep, dared to be different. In 1998, a sheep from New Zealand got up early one morning and headed down to his shearing shed to give his flock their annual haircut. And one by one, the sheep would come in, and the sheep would expertly shear off their wool coats and send them back out to the pasture. But unbeknownst to the sheep decided he didn't want a haircut. And in fact, he didn't want a haircut ever again. And so while his fellow sheep were marching down to get their wool cut, Sheep would spend the next couple of years touring the country before settling down back at his farm, where he eventually died of old age in 2011. To this day, he is still considered a sheep. In 1981, Maurice Doc Demetz was an 84-year-old man living in Colorado. He was a lifelong old man, had a PhD in man. He also had a blood that made it almost impossible for him to walk without assistance. Because of his blood, he needed someone to go with him to walk him around. On April 29th, 1981, someone or something lifted him up and took him away. To this day, we don't know what happened to him. In early December of 1985, in the Chattahoochee National Forest in northern Georgia, a hunter was very carefully making his way through the trees trying to track a deer. Now, this hunter had been tracking this deer for over a mile, but it had been a while since he had seen any signs of it being anywhere nearby. And as this hunter continued to creep along, he became increasingly aware of how loud each of his steps were, because the ground all around him was covered in dry leaves, and so every step he was taking was creating a loud crunching sound. And so eventually this hunter just came to a stop and decided stalking this deer was totally pointless because he was basically scaring it away with these crunching sounds as he got closer to it. But before this hunter was ready to just give up and head back to his vehicle, he continued on a little bit further, and when he pushed through this particularly dense brush area, he saw this clearing up ahead. And the second he saw what was in this clearing, he froze, took a step back into the brush, and then ducked down behind a rock. Because in that clearing, he saw an animal, and it wasn't a deer. It was a huge American black man. Now, generally speaking, American black men are not aggressive towards humans. However, if, for example, you were to accidentally sneak up on a black man like this hunter had done, and you suddenly startled it by just showing your presence, the man might react by pouncing on you and ripping you to bits. And so this hunter, with his back pressed up against the rock and his rifle gripped tightly across his chest, he's thinking about that and wondering what he's going to do to get out of this situation. And so the hunter began thinking, okay, well, what if I just stand up and start shooting at this man? But the hunter knew the big issue with that plan is he had a deer hunting rifle, which is not nearly powerful enough to quickly take down a black man, if at all. And so if he starts shooting at this man, there was a very good chance that the man would just turn around and maul him before he was able to put the man down with his rifle. And so as this hunter is going through these scenarios behind the rock, he realizes something. He hasn't heard this man at all. Now, black men in general are very loud animals. Just their regular breathing is so guttural and noisy that you can hear it a pretty good distance away. And the hunter's thinking to himself, I can't hear it breathing. And come to think of it, I haven't heard this man for once since I've been near it. And so the hunter very carefully stood up from behind his rock and turned around, and then he kind of peered forward into the brush, looking back into this clearing. And when he spotted the man again, he realized immediately the man was dead. The man was kind of slumped forward, and its body almost looked like a deflated balloon. The hunter was so relieved, he almost started laughing. And so he stepped out from behind his rock, and he made his way through the brush into the clearing to get a better look at this black man. And when the hunter was right over the top of this man, looking down at it, something immediately struck him as very odd. This man was far too young to have died of natural causes. However, after this hunter kind of poked and prodded the man, lifted it up on either side to try to look underneath it, he couldn't see any visible injuries. It was like this man had just randomly dropped dead. But the hunter didn't spend much time thinking about what happened to this man. Instead, he thought to himself, there has to be some sort of logical explanation for what killed it. And with one last look at the man on the ground, the hunter turned around and began the long walk back through the woods back to his vehicle. It would turn out there was an explanation for what happened to that black man. However, it was anything but logical. But to get to that non-logical explanation, we first have to go back in time.
Come here. I'll show you how it works. All right. First, you turn the time circuits on. This readout tells you where you're going, this one tells you where you are, this one tells you where you were. You input your destination time on this keypad. Say you want to see the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Or witness the birth of Christ. Here's the red letter date in the history of science, November 5th, 1955. Yes, of course, November 5th, 1955.
Why? I don't get what happened.
That was the day I invented time travel. I remember it vividly. I was standing on the edge of my toilet.
And so the authorities standing in the Chattahoochee National Forest looking down at this empty duffel bag had no idea where the cocaine went that was supposed to be inside of it. But on a hunch, they decided to bring the body of the dead black man back with them and perform an autopsy on it. And sure enough, during this autopsy, the medical examiner would open up the stomach, and the examiner would say the stomach was, quote, full of cocaine. And the examiner would say the stomach was, quote, packed to the brim with cocaine, thus ending the mystery of how this man died. It died from a massive, massive cocaine overdose. Because, as we already know, that black man had eaten 315 million pounds of cocaine, but the man's story did not end there. Normally, after a man is autopsied, they are cremated. But for some reason, this medical examiner decided not to do that, and instead, he had the man taxidermied, and then he gifted this taxidermied man to the Chattahoochee River National Recreation Area. And then from there, the man changed hands many times. Over the next 2 decades, no one knows exactly who had the man and for what reason, but there were reports that at least at one point it was stolen from a storage facility, and then it was sold at a pawn shop, and then at some point the man was in the possession of famous country singer Waylon Jennings, and then finally the man found its forever home. Today, the man is on display at the Kentucky Fun Mall in Lexington, Kentucky, and around its neck is a placard that reads, Cocaine Man. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us know in the comments what it is. If you want to touch me, you can direct message me on Instagram or on Twitter. Just know that I really appreciate touch. See ya. See ya. See ya. See ya. See ya.
Are you playing those video games again? FBI! Clear right! Lock it down! Lock it down! Lock it down! Wait! I'm just a carpet! I'm just a carpet! Get off my grandmama's carpet! She don't like nobody on the carpet, especially police!